Do you believe in aliens, or the fact that somewhere out there, UFOs exist and they are keeping an eye on everything we do as a planet, hoping that one day they would take over and wipe us all out? Well, Gary McKinnon believed this so much that he got a certification in IT and computer sciences just so he could hack into the government's archives to find out the truth about aliens and UFOs. But how does one get into this? What put such an idea into his mind? Well, to answer this, we must start from the very beginning and understand his background. Then we go from there. Gary McKinnon's background is no doubt an interesting one. He was born in Glasgow, Scotland in 1966. His parents were an even more interesting bunch. His dad, Charlie McKinnon, was into scaffolding and worked hard to provide an honest living. But when Gary was 6, his life changed drastically when he had to move to London with his mom and stepdad. But little did he know, his stepdad would ignite in him a flame that would burn in Gary's mind for a lifetime. Unlike most other stepdads and their stepsons, Gary and his stepfather caught on quickly, and they took a liking to one another. Then his stepdad introduced Gary to one of his hobbies and obsessions, sci-fi and UFOs. Over the next few years, Gary became fascinated with UFOs. His stepdad really believed in sci-fi and the existence of aliens and UFOs, so Gary found his curiosity rise and he too began to develop a strong interest in the field. This was the beginning of something extraordinary, but at the time, Gary had no idea. Gary's academic chapters unfolded at Muswell Hill Primary School and Highgate Wood from 1977 to 1982. At the young age of 14, Gary found a new passion and fascination, and so he dived headfirst into the realm of computers. The more time he spent with computers, the more fascinated he became, but little by little, he went farther than the average person would. He began to explore machine codes and craft his own virtual games. From the ages of 14 to 17, he immersed himself completely in computers and began to teach himself a few tricks. To everyone else, he was just a young teenager obsessed with computers. But what was really happening was the fact that Gary was setting himself up for the one move that would shake an entire country years later. Soon enough, everyone around Gary began to notice his proficiency with computers, so his friends persuaded him to earn some level of qualification in the field. He agreed that it was a good idea, so a few years later, Gary completed an IT certification course. But up until now, it was all about doing cool stuff with computers, but everything changed in 1983. If you're wondering what happened in 1983 and why it was so significant in Gary's life, well, you're in for a treat. This was the year that Gary decided he was going to be a hacker. How did he come to such a decision? Well, it all started in the most unlikely circumstance, a movie. When Gary McKinnon was 17, he watched the movie War Games at his local cinema in Crouch End, North London. The movie showed a kid doing hacking, and that got Gary thinking about being a hacker someday. But life went in a different direction when he finished school. Instead of following a typical path, he became a hairdresser. Yet, the pull of his real interest in computers and hacking was strong. So even as a hairdresser, he kept looking for work in the world of computers. With his computer certification, Gary finally found contract work in the computer field. However, fate had other plans. Despite how hard he worked at his new job, in 2000, Gary was let go, and for a while, he didn't have a job. This change not only shifted his career, but also caused some complications in his relationship with his girlfriend, and it set the stage for the next part of Gary's journey. Now that he was out of a job, there was nothing else to do, and so had all the time to go back to his first fascination and hobby, UFOs. Now that he had computer skills, he could find out more information about UFOs. Were they real? Is the government hiding it? There was only one way to find out. Between 1995 and 2000, Gary McKinnon was busy honing his computer skills, learning programming, and creating games and graphics. Then, in 2000, he started checking out US government computer systems. Surprisingly, some of these systems had admin access without passwords, and he managed to get in. Once he tasted success, Gary became hooked on hacking. He went from one system to another, digging into US military secrets. His goal was to find information about UFOs and extraterrestrial life. It's believed that the US government noticed him in 2000, keeping an eye on his activities. Since he wasn't causing real harm and was more of an explorer, they didn't take immediate action. Instead, they collected evidence to understand his motives. But things took a serious turn when NASA reached out to the National High-Tech Crime Unit of the UK in November 2001. Gary got the news in February 2002 about the US officials' concerns, but he didn't stop. He continued his hacking adventures, hacking into the systems of over 2,000 official systems and gaining access to hundreds of top-secret files. So far, he was getting away with the whole thing. But the most shocking thing is how he was achieving such a daring feat. Surprisingly, Gary didn't use fancy technology for his hacks, just a basic computer and a dial-up modem. He followed 3 steps. First, scanning to identify Windows systems. Second, checking if he could communicate with them. And third, finding systems without passwords. After that, he planted his backdoor to regain access whenever he wanted. He installed an application called Remotely Anywhere. This tool allowed remote control of computers over a network or the internet. Currently, it's managed by Logmain. Once inside the network, Gary had access to files on any machine and could freely navigate throughout the entire system, and he went crazy with it, not caring about the consequences of his actions. And they were significant. Gary McKinnon's actions sent ripples across national, personal, and social realms, creating a substantial impact. It evolved into a national event, capturing attention both in the US and the UK. The US government reported that within 24 hours of Gary's activities, over 2,000 machines shut down. Critical operating system files were deleted, causing access interruptions for more than 2,400 users. The aftermath required US military officers to invest time and resources in recovering the deleted files, leading the government to claim damages exceeding $700,000. This marked the beginning of a legal saga. Gary, indicted by the US states of Virginia in 2005, faced a decade-long battle regarding his extradition from the UK to the US. This struggle prompted a significant public response, with free Gary McKinnon websites emerging as a form of support. Forbes recognized Gary's impact by listing him among the top 20 hackers who shaped the cybersecurity landscape forever. The legal battle unfolded on multiple fronts, starting with Gary's arrest by the UK National High-Tech Crime Unit in March 2002. In the same year, he faced charges in the US states of Virginia and New Jersey for 8 counts of computer-related crimes. The extradition proceedings began in 2005, with Mark Summers representing the US government. The subsequent legal journey included rulings, appeals, and complex deliberations. The UK Home Secretary granted the US request in 2006, leading to an appeal by Gary against the decision. However, despite various appeals and legal maneuvers, including a rejected attempt to bring charges against him by the UK, Gary faced mounting challenges. His health condition. He was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which added complexity to the proceedings. After facing legal blows and failed attempts to prevent his extradition, Gary's fate hung in the balance. In October 2012, Home Secretary Theresa May announced that Gary McKinnon would not be extradited to the US, ending a nearly decade-long legal battle. The US Department of State and Justice Department expressed frustration at the decision, but hoped the extradition relationship would endure. The conclusion of the legal battle also saw a declaration from the UK Police and Crown Prosecution Service, or CPS, that no further legal action would be taken in Britain against Gary McKinnon. Throughout his tumultuous journey, media coverage played a pivotal role. The UK media, particularly BBC, took the lead, covering every aspect of the case until its closure. Other prominent outlets like The Telegraph, The Independent, Reuters, CNN, Sunday Times, and Daily Mirror also prioritized coverage. Gary's story became a subject of interviews and programs, drawing substantial attention from the public. Ultimately, Gary McKinnon's hacking and extradition case became a compelling narrative that unfolded on the national and global stage, leaving a lasting impact on cybersecurity discussions and legal considerations. But despite all these, Gary felt zero remorse. He expressed clearly that if he wasn't arrested, he would have continued his search for UFO, and he was happy with himself despite all. According to him, he could not bear to know that aliens may be out there keeping an eye on us, and most of us had no idea. The real criminals were the government and not him, Gary pointed out. But what do you think? Does Gary have a point, or should we disregard him as the criminal he is made out to be? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more riveting hacking stories incoming.